Yo. Okay, I just have to do it manually. I'm sorry about that, guys. Daggone it. I hate being unprofessional, guys. My mic was giving me some hard time, but my uncle hasn't came in yet. I almost want to restart the stream, but I don't want to make it difficult for him to come on. But please, guys, I apologize. My mic wasn't plugged in all the way like it was supposed to. A bunch of technical difficulties, but thank you guys for joining me anyway. Please just bear with me. But I'll just get back to what I was saying. Just bear with me I'm gonna use the internal mic rather than my actual microphone. I wanted to have a better experience with this microphone, but it's giving me some trouble. But maybe you guys can still hear me. Can you guys hear me? Type of 1 in the chat if you guys can hear me. That way, when my uncle gets here, it'll be a little bit easier. Type of 1 in the chat. Okay. Anyway. Oh, man. Because, see, I want to start over, guys, but I already sent my uncle the link, and it'll kind of confuse him if I try to stop and start over and stuff like that. But please, guys, do as a black person, as a black man talking to black people, bear with me. When they do the playback, please get past the first minute or two of this. I'm sorry about this. I thought you guys could hear me. I really work hard on this, guys. I work really hard on this to put this show together. So please bear with me. I think the mic is working a little bit better now, but please bear with me. I have worked hard to put these shows together, and small mistakes shouldn't, keep us from being able to have this conversation. But right now, I'm going to play a clip by Dr. King. I think I was playing this clip last time. So I'm going to go ahead and play it now. This should give me some time to get all my technical difficulties together. Bear with me. Here's Dr. King. For all y'all that like to hate on him, why don't you let the brother speak for himself, and then we'll talk about the excerpts of what he actually was saying. All right, hold on, guys, just a second. All right.
For the gaining of citizenship rights for Negroes was to end the humiliation surrounding the whole system of legal segregation.
Dr. King, was there something peculiar to the place where you started and the kind of people you attracted? I mean by that, there was a strong attachment on the part of your parishioners in Montgomery to the church. They were older people, weren't they?
Yes, I would say by and large they were older people who participated in the boycott because they were the ones using the bus more than anybody else. And Montgomery was a community predominantly church-centered, so that it was very easy to get to the vast majority of Negroes because they were in some way connected with a church in the community.
Sir, in addition to your commitment to the idea of nonviolence, wasn't it also the only thing you could do, the white community having the monopoly on violence, that if you had tried violence, they would have met it with violence? It was the only device open to you, wasn't it?
Well, I'll put it another way, that morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. Now, there is no doubt about the fact that in our struggle in Montgomery and all over the United States for that matter, nonviolence is also practically sound. It would just be impractical for the Negro to turn to violence. He has neither the instruments nor the techniques of violence. We are about 10 or 11% of the total population of the nation, and I would say we're about 1/10 of the firepower. So it would just be totally impractical and unwise and unrealistic for the Negro to think of violence. Well, I saw this in the beginning in Montgomery, but this wasn't the basic reason that I turned to nonviolence and that I believed in it as a philosophy. I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
Is there something about nonviolence that made it, and I use that in the past tense, that made it more useful among Southern Negroes than the ghetto Negroes of the North?
I wouldn't say there's anything that makes it more useful to Southern Negroes. I think it is true that we've had more nonviolent movements in the South because the problem for many years was more crystallized and, in a sense, more visible in the South. We didn't have many civil rights activities on a massive scale in the North until 3 or 4 years ago. So I would say that we just haven't had a chance to experiment on a broad scale with nonviolence in the Northern ghetto. I have the feeling that nonviolence is as applicable and workable in the Northern ghetto as it is in the South. There's a larger job there. The frustrations at points are much deeper. The bitterness is deeper. And I think that's because in the South, we can see pockets of progress here and there. We've really made some strides that are very visible, and every Southern Negro knows that he can do things today that he couldn't do 4 or 5 years ago. Whereas in the North, the Negro sees only retrogress, and he doesn't find it as easy to get his vision centered on his target, the target of opposition, as he does in the South. Consequently, this is made for despair and at many points cynicism, a feeling that you can't win. And it simply means that we've got to develop in the North a massive job of organization and mobilizing forces and resources to deal with the problem in the urban ghettos of the North, just as we've done it in the South.
Well, in the South, particularly in
Mike. Yo, guys. All right, for sure. Thank you. Man, I've been having a hard time getting people to come on. Anyway, as you guys heard Dr. King just speaking, he was talking about why he actually went about the civil rights by doing nonviolence. Now, I played you guys mostly Dr. King last time. I actually have a big disagreement with Malcolm's way about going about this because of the word that Dr. King just used. It's impractical. It's impractical at that time that 11% of the country said, you know what? We're just going to get a bunch of guns and we're going to just start shooting. Now, see, that's impractical. And even today, as us as young, the Generation X and the Millennial Generation and Generation Z, we trying to attack the idea of racism and white supremacy the same way. We're only 2% more than what we were then. Martin said we're 11%, we're 13% today, 6% black men, 7% black women. We are so low in the numbers. It's almost like trying to take a knife to a gunfight. I mean, it's a bad choice unless you're trying to defend your ego. But I think black people, we're bigger than just our ego. We actually have the power and the minds and the inventions and the ingenious to take over the world, but we can't do that if we obliterate ourselves over foolish pride. Because there's nothing wrong with having pride, but be proud of what you can construct, not with what you're proud, just standing upon nothing. That makes no sense. But anyway, I'm going to let Dr. King. Be honest with you guys, I want to start over, but I want to lose some of y'all. And right now, my uncle he's trying to get it together on his end. And if I were to start over, it would cause a bigger mess. But yeah, I'm gonna go back to Martin. Let's let Dr. King speak, because you guys know where I stand. I back up Martin Luther King 100%. Let the brother speak. Let's go.
In Alabama, you had visible villains: Jim Clark, Bull Connor, cattle prods, police dogs. But in the North, you don't have those visible villains. Isn't it hard to get your people aroused and directed at something that isn't visible?
Well, that's exactly right. And this is what I was saying when I said it's harder to see a target. In the South, in the nonviolent movement, we were aided always, on the whole, by the brutality of our opponent. It isn't the same way in the North. The other thing is that you don't have legal segregation in the North as you do in the South. So it is much more difficult to get people to see exactly what you're doing, but it isn't an impossible job. It's a hard, it's a tedious job at times to get people to be aroused from their apathetic slumbers, but I still feel that Negroes in the North can be motivated just as they were motivated in the South. And I think as time goes on with the growing economic deprivation in the Negro community, it will even be easier because people will come to see that not only is something wrong in general, but something is wrong in particular in their own economic and housing situation.
Yeah.
Well, what is it? I mean, how do you find it? It's very subtle in the North, is it not?
It's subtle, but it's becoming much more visible. Anybody can see that the schools are more segregated in the North today than they were in 1954 when the Supreme Court rendered its decision declaring segregation unconstitutional. Anybody can look around the ghetto and see that ghetto schools are predominantly segregated and devoid of quality. Anyone who moves through a major ghetto of our country will see the housing conditions. People don't have to be reminded that they are forced to live in slums in many instances, and they're often rat-infested, vermin-filled slums. And it isn't too hard to see the exploitation that the Negro confronts in the ghetto.
Okay, hold on just a second, guys. Uncle Robert, I don't know if you're watching this on Facebook or if you got it in your messenger, but I sent it also to your phone. Just click on the StreamYard link, whatever the instructions it gives you. Just follow step 1, step 2, and it'll take you right into the show. I just wanted to follow everything StreamYard says. All right. Just want to give you a little instructions.
Where he is forced to pay more for less and constantly trying to make ends meet, but because of either no job as a result of unemployment or a job that is so economically unprofitable that the person can't make ends meet. And I think they see all of these things, and more they're coming to see them, because before the people of the North were looking to the South and they supported the struggles of the South. Now they're coming to see that their problems are very real and they've got organized to grapple with them.
Was there something hypocritical about the fact that the South existed and the North could point the finger? And then when the Civil Rights Acts were passed in the early 60s, you couldn't point the finger anymore?
Well, there was no doubt about the hypocrisy of large segments of the nation on the whole question of racial equality. I think the best example is that many of the senators from the North and the West, and congressmen generally, who voted for civil rights legislation in 64 and even 65 of the Voting Rights Bill, refused last year to vote for civil rights legislation because it dealt with an issue applicable to the North, the whole housing question. And this, it seems to me, was the greatest expression of the hypocrisy of many of our citizens and many of the senators and congressmen of the North.
But isn't that part of the dilemma now? That people knew that Negroes were being denied.
Okay, while I'm waiting for my uncle, I'd just like to give a quick little synopsis of that. One thing that I admire about Dr. King, is he was very calculated in his wordplay as well as able to articulate his point of view. And I like how when he was able, any question that interview asked him, he was able to answer precise and on point and concise as well. And especially, I don't know if any of you guys understand this, but at that time, a Black person, we were thought to be ignorant and things like that. So for us to always have a on point, everything, be able to answer without a stutter or any kind of even sometimes y'all hear on my show, not with Dr. King, but you know what I'm saying, when you guys hear Dr. King, I said these are those small things, that these nuances of his life that I think we need to pay attention to before we try to condemn him about stuff that had nothing to do with his legacy. One thing about his legacy I respect is his ability to be able to not only just hold a conversation, be able to hold it and articulate himself perfectly without speaking with too much alacrity, but yet so much clarity. You get what I'm saying? So I'm gonna let them go back to Dr. King, let him speak.
denied what was guaranteed to them by the Constitution, by the fact that they were citizens of this country. Then when they were given those rights, do you feel the white community said, well, we've given them all that we have, now it's up to them?
Well, I think the dilemma is much deeper, and I think one during this period of transition has to be very honest with America. And honesty impels me to admit that America has broad racist elements still alive. Racism is still existing in American society in many areas of the society, North and South. And the other thing is that there has never been a single, solid, determined commitment of large segments of white America on the whole question of racial equality. I think we have to see that vacillation has always existed, ambivalence has always existed, and this to me is the so-called white backlash. It's merely a new name for an old phenomenon. I see the white backlash as a continuation of the same ambivalence and vacillation of white America on the whole question of racial justice that has existed since the founding of our nation. I think the other thing that we must see at this time is that many of the people who supported us in Selma,
kind of buying time. Uncle Robert, I don't know if you're on Facebook or if you see this at all, but just I sent the link to your text messages. If you just click on it, and it'll take you to the StreamYard page. Excuse me, the StreamYard page. And on the StreamYard page, it gives you this list of instructions. Everything it tells you to do, just kind of do it. It's kind of simple, you know what I mean? And I want anybody else, but you're not the only one, Uncle Robert. I don't put you out there because even my friend Devin was having problems with the other day, but he got the routine of it. It usually has this step 1, step 2 process, but it's it's quite easy. If there's anybody else, it doesn't have to just be my Uncle Robert. I just made special time for him because that's my uncle. But if anybody has anything you want to say on this subject, please come up. I start this channel so everybody can have a say, because this is black people. They say we don't listen, and especially during Dr. King's day, they tried to silence a black man any chance they get. So I'm gonna use my chance that I got to be able to speak to you guys. But yeah, don't just let it be me, y'all. So I see y'all on there. Don't be shy, man. Come on up. All right, get back to Dr. King. He's a much better speaker than me. Let him go.
in Birmingham were really outraged about the extremist behavior toward Negroes, but they were not at that moment, and they are not now, committed to genuine equality for Negroes. It's much easier to integrate a lunch counter than it is to guarantee an annual income, for instance, to get rid of poverty for Negroes and all poor people. It's much easier to integrate a bus than it is to make genuine integration a reality and quality education a reality in our schools. It's much easier to integrate even a public park than it is to get rid of slums. And I think we are in a new era, a new phase of the struggle, where we have moved from a struggle for decency, which characterized our struggle for 10 or 12 years, to a struggle for genuine equality. And this is where we're getting the resistance, because there was never any intention to go this far. People were reacting to Bull Connor and to Jim Clark rather than acting in good faith for the realization of genuine equality.
Do you think white people in this country, and I'm talking about non-segregationists, people devoid or thinking they're devoid of racism, do you have any idea of what they want the Negro to be in America?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're in a very small minority. I think the vast majority of white Americans will go but so far. It's a kind of installment plan for equality, and they are always looking for an excuse to go but so far.
Why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow not easily, but somehow got around it? Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it. And that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here in chains, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro.
Okay, guys. Sorry about that, but I actually wanted to let Dr. King play because he said something interesting about the land. See, in America, the biggest asset we can get is land. Dr. King said it. Even Malcolm said it. And I'm going to bring somebody up that y'all might be upset about, but I want you to pay attention to what he said. Kanye West. I know a lot of people probably rolling their eyes, but what did Kanye West say when he said slavery was a choice? Everybody got so caught up in those words that they forgot the very few sentences he said after, where he says, America is for sale. Everything is about land. Disney bought most of the land in the line. See, people got so caught up in, he said slavery was a choice. But did you hear the part he said about buying land? And then you just heard Dr. King say, we should have some land after what we did. They made sure the white settlers had land. They made sure all the Europeans had land. Why didn't we get our land? Not to mention all the work we did on American soil, which almost kind of qualifies us to have land. See, my thing is everybody want to talk about reparations. I'm not so concerned about getting the money. Give me the land. I've heard Dr. King speak of land. I've heard Malcolm X speak of land. And then even Kanye West, somebody of our generation, say get some land. And he has the money to actually purchase a lot of it. So what is my point? Josh, what's your point? My point is these are the type of things, discussion we should be having, not what kind of car should I buy, how many chains can I get, and how many girls should I be with. It should be about how much land can I obtain, what I can put on it, and how can I make this land last for generations. As a matter of fact, we all used to play a game when we was little called Monopoly. And in Monopoly, if you played Monopoly, you know, yes, you purchased property, and yes, you want to beat your opponent, but how did you beat your opponent? You had to buy a lot of land. And when you bought land, you could put houses on your land. And when you put houses on your land, if anybody landed on your property, pay attention, y'all. If somebody landed on your property, not only can they have to pay you rent, but then they have to pay you rent doubled or even almost a quarter more than what they would have paid if you had no houses on your property. See, that game that we played as a kid, they prepared us for life in a lot of ways. I didn't see it then, but I do see it now. It just kind of came to me as he mentioned the word land. So land is very important. I would love to continue the show on. Man, I'm just hoping, praying my uncle will come on. But I know people of the silent generation and baby boom generation, they're more about let's get on the phone and talk rather than text, or StreamYard is fairly new of the last 5 years or so. So I understand, you know what I mean? But yeah, for the future reference, guys, if I send you the StreamYard link, it may seem like it's difficult to do, but all you have to do is just click on the link, and it gives you these set of instructions, and you just you follow the instructions. You know what I mean? It's a it's much simpler. I know some people kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do, but it's cool. You just click on the link, I'll bring you right on up, and we just talk like as if we're talking face to face. We got cameras now, so everything's But I don't know how long I'm gonna be on right now, and I see some of you guys are watching, but you're not ready to come up. I put the link in there. Let me see if on Facebook. Let me cross on over to Facebook really quick. But yeah, but just like I was saying, when it comes to America, some of the biggest things about America is owning land, and when you own land, you actually own something called an asset that could be flipped for generation to generation. If you think I'm lying, you can talk to rich white people. You can talk to rich people, period. How do you have money is when you buy some land. Like I said, Kanye West, that's somebody we're supposed to be listening to in our generation. He said that. But people got so caught up in him saying slavery was a choice. I guess what he meant was, with all the options we have available as opposed to other countries, we have an ability to buy land. Like what people have to understand about what Kanye said, because I would like to speak on that because he brought up slavery. And slavery, did you guys know that Brazilian slavery was a lot more, I'm not going to say better as if, because if you're working for somebody, it's bad. But Brazilian slavery was a lot more acceptable. If I had to be a slave, if they gave me a choice, pick America or Brazil, I'll pick Brazil. Because you know what they could do in Brazil? You could get married. Yeah, you'll be probably treated a little bad until you got married. Then they allowed you to buy your freedom. And with your freedom, you were allowed to buy what, y'all? Land. And the people over there, the colonizers in Brazil, allowed you not only to buy land, but even if they want to lynch you, like, man, we want to lynch him, but daggone it, he's on his land that he bought. But see, in America, when blacks owned slaves, they could actually take you off your land, take your land, and then take you and put you on their land and make you work. You see what I'm saying? So what Kanye said has some validity. I just wish that he gave it a little bit more description. And reason why it's not about Kanye, it's not about Brazil, but it's about the privileges, not privileges, but the things we have access to in America. Let's take advantage. Is the point. And I get that. And I agree with it wholeheartedly. I'm pretty sure my uncle came on here agree too. Uncle Robert, if you're watching on Facebook, I don't know if this is you watching because it doesn't show me exactly who's watching. But if it's you, I sent the link twice to your text message. Just click on it. It'll do all the work basically for you. You got to click on it. You know what I mean? But anyway, I'm going to be on for a little while longer, guys. It's about 30 minutes and 52 seconds in. My uncle's not the only person that's invited. A lot of people are invited. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be the only one talking. You know what I'm saying? I can talk to myself without a camera. You feel me? So, anyway, just, come on up, support your boy. But I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. King, to give y'all some time to come up and because I admire Dr. King. I like the way he answers things, and hopefully I could be able to speak like how he speaks one day in front of people, articulate himself very well. But anyway.
Was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom in famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Apart from wanting to live better, which all of us want to do, to raise one's children in a better way, to be better, does the Negro in America know what he wants to be?
I'm convinced that almost every Negro in this country, other than those who have been so scarred by the system that they've become pathological in the process, and we all have to battle with pathology. Nobody really knows what it means to be a Negro unless one can really experience it. And I know we all have to battle with this constant drain of a feeling of nobodiness. But in spite of this, I think the vast majority of Negroes in this country know that they want to be people, they want to be men, they want equality, period. It just boils down to that. And we haven't been able to be people. We haven't been men because of all of the conditions that we've lived with and the syndrome of deprivation surrounding conditions, whether it's in housing, in the economic area, or in schools, or in the vicious credit practices that we face in the ghetto, and all of the problems of closed doors and constant defeats. But in spite of all this, I think we all know basically that we want to be men. We want to be persons judged not on the basis of the color of our skin, but on the basis of the content of our character.
But you know that many young Negroes don't want anything that smacks of the American white middle class. But do they want something that smacks of whatever is the black middle class? Or do they just not want bourgeois values, which after all are the basis of this democracy?
Well, I think we have to see what they are saying.
Okay, guys. Man, I think maybe you know what, guys. To be honest with you, the last couple of days I've been having trouble with Facebook's connection to my StreamYard. I have to see what's going on with my network, but maybe it's my network. Maybe not my uncle. Maybe it's my network. But I would like to say, and I'm gonna end it with this because you know, I didn't want Dr. King to go on too long. I want to actually have people challenge me on my support of Dr. King on some of the points that I made about land, about the fair housing thing that he fought for, and about basically his whole stance. And I'm gonna end it with this. A lot of people said that Dr. King did nothing for our people and that, you know, fighting white people and stuff, that's what we're supposed to do. Nah. I believe the best way that you attack a white person isn't, see, as black people, when we fight amongst each other by doing what? Hand-to-hand combat. Going at each other like pit bulls. But see, if we're going to go at white folk, rich white folk, by the way, what we should do is fight like how Dr. King fought. See, one thing I learned about white people is a lot of white people, when they love a restaurant, they will patronize the restaurant and treat it like family. They'll treat it like it's their actual house. So I doubt that started in our generation. I believe it started even in that previous generation. I'm sure of it. So what is my point? My point is when Dr. King said, let's do this sit-in at this particular restaurant, what happens is those white people who said, man, I would have ate here today, but look at all these Negroes chained together eating at this restaurant. I don't want to eat here. Not one punch was thrown, but what did that man lose? What did the business owner, what did he lose? He lost what? Revenue. You don't hit white people like how you hit black people. You hit black people with your hands, you hit white people in their economics, hit their pocketbook. And that's what Dr. King's point was. If I could hit their pocketbook, what? They lose money, which means they lose a piece of themselves. And if you think I'm lying, why did they kill him if it wasn't about economics? You can march all day talking about nonviolence and I'm beating up inside your head. That's nothing. But once I actually take money out your pocket, now you're going to hate me. Now you're going to hate me because you're like, wait a minute. This is how I feed my family is by having this money here. I mean, by making money. And if I can't make money, I can't keep my establishment. And if I can't keep my establishment, you've affected my life effectively. So I believe that's right there. And think about how much power that is to harm somebody without even touching them. Without even touching the white people, he was able to do what? Take their money. And like I say, anytime you speak truth in the world, you'll be faced with opposition. But when you put actions behind that truth, you're definitely going to be oppressed by in opposition to what the world believes. You know, and like I said, and Martin Luther King had Christian values as I had Christian values. And what does the Bible say? It says what? To be friends with the world, to be enemies with God, right? So even though Dr. King, everybody was like, well, the world would say, let's fight, let's hit him in the head. Dr. King said, no, let's take an opposite approach and do what? Be nonviolent. Now, the world has a problem with that, but as a godly man, I understand completely why he did what he did. And what he did affect economics. Once again, money is the root of all evil. But see, money can be defeated in a way that I would say others can't be defeated as, and that's by hitting it in a moral way which your pride has to be subdued in order for you to make effectual change. All right, thank you guys. Uncle Robert, maybe I don't know if you're watching this, but maybe we could reschedule a show to where it's just me and you, a 101. You know, I tried to let everybody come on. Maybe I don't know what's going on with my network. Maybe it's not you. Maybe it's my network. Whatever the issue may be, but I would like to speak with you. And guys, this was part 3, but I'll do a part 4 so that I can have everybody, because I want Black people to have a discussion about this. The young and the older generation. We need to come to a consensus. And on my show, I'll be honored if the consensus is made on my show. Thank you guys, everybody. It's JB9 Deuce, represent JB Speak Easy, the Black platform where Black men speak freely. I am your host, JB9 Deuce. Y'all have a wonderful evening, and look forward to seeing you guys later in another time. Thank you. God bless you all.